In November, the members of Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana's Your Party voted to install a collective leadership model at the party's founding conference. Now, the existence of a collective leadership model over a single leader was the outcome of an almighty battle at the conference, with Sultana arguing for collective leadership while Corbyn pursued singular leadership. Against a backdrop of claims and counterclaims over interference with party democracy, culminating in a high-profile boycott of the conference's first day by Sultana, it was collective leadership that won out. That conference ended with a lot of questions about what would come next. But over the last few months, members of the party have been campaigning for election for the 24 slots that make up the Central Executive Committee. Most of those who put themselves forward for election came from two slates. On the one hand, there was the grassroots left, fronted by Zara Sultana. Its pitch emphasised maximum member democracy, financial transparency, and socialist and liberationist politics. On the other were the many, a Corbyn-led slate stressing the need for an outward-looking party seeking electoral success while opposing war and establishment power, all while building a multi-ethnic coalition. The results of that election were announced this morning after a process in which 62% of the party's 41,000 verified members, candidates from the many, have won 14 of the CEC seats, with Sultana's slates taking 7. A further 3 went to independent candidates, and there are 9 English regions represented by the CEC, and they each have 2 members. So for most of those regions, there is one representative from the many, and another from either the grassroots left or people who ran as an independent. There are, however, 2 exceptions. Both candidates from the East Midlands and the North East are from the many's slate. Your party members in Scotland and Wales also elected their own representative for the CEC, picking Niall Christie and Maria Donnellan respectively. There are also 4 seats on the NEC reserved for public office holders. Corbyn and Sultana have each secured a spot, as well as former Labour MP and current councillor Laura Smith from the many slate, and Coventry councillor Grace Lewis from the grassroots left. Somewhat strikingly, neither Ayub Khan nor Shoka Adam, the 2 independent MPs involved with the foundation of your party, were elected to the CEC. The newly elected CEC will not have to choose office holders from among those elected, including a chair, secretary and treasurer, although MPs aren't allowed to hold those positions. One position an MP can, however, hold is parliamentary leader. That role has now been claimed by Jeremy Corbyn, after his slate won the majority of the seats on the committee. In a statement, Corbyn said this: "I am delighted that members have voted for a mass socialist party that takes the fight to Starmer and Farage. Now the real work begins. We have a precious opportunity to unite our movement around a bold vision for this country, one that believes in a more caring, equal and peaceful society for all. We are at a dangerous moment in this country. The division and racism of reform cannot be appeased. It must be opposed. There is only one way we will defeat them, by working together under a common cause of redistribution, humanity and peace." Zara Sultana had a message regarding this too. "While we didn't secure the result we'd hoped for, members have sent a clear message and it must be heard. Across the party there is a strong call for greater transparency and accountability, for branches to be properly recognised and respected, and for access to membership data and resources. Now is the time to work together. The stakes are just too high. With fascism growling at the door, we must take the fight to the country on the cost of living crisis, housing emergency, the climate emergency, and in standing firmly against genocide and injustice wherever it occurs." Sultana also pointed out that 20 out of your party's 24 elected leaders are women, which is a very significant result. And I'm joined today by 2 of today's winners. Cassie Bellingham is a trade unionist and former councillor who ran on the many slate in the South East. And author, socialist and union member Candy Williams ran on the grassroots left slate in the South West. Oh, welcome to the show. Let me begin by asking each of you how you're feeling about after today's result, and I'll start with you, Cassie.
Well, obviously very pleased. I'm delighted to see all the candidates there. I mean, it's great that we have so many from the many team who I've got to know really well. But I'm also really excited at the members that have been elected from the grassroots slate and from the independents. You know, I've got a bit addicted to watching some of the hustings over the last few weeks and just seeing the enormous amount of wealth and experience there is amongst our members and amongst the people who put themselves forward. So I'm feeling very positive this evening. Very, very relieved it's landed. It's been a tough, bruising campaign. But yeah, it's a good day.
Andy, the same question to yourself, Candy, as well.
Yeah, so I feel a little bit what I imagine it feels to feel like having run a marathon. It's been a real journey, but I'm feeling hopeful about what's ahead. I think collective leadership and the vote for it was a real sign that people want to do things differently and they want ordinary people's voices to be representative. So I feel really honoured to to be one of those voices. And I think, as Zara said, having 20 out of 24 people being women and having such ethnic diversity as well is something that I'm really, really proud to see and be part of too.
Absolutely. It is always good to start with priorities. I'd like to know, both of you, what your priorities are, now that the party has an elected leadership. I'll start with you, Cassie.
Well, I suspect we've both got very similar priorities. It's about getting the party up and fully functioning, isn't it? Getting our branches ratified, getting all the resources to them that they need, being ready for the May elections. We voted at conference, the members voted at conference to prioritise those independents and those areas where they're already ready to go for these May elections. And there's actually a lot more than people realise, I think. So we need to move fast on that, getting all the structures in place, all the governance in place. It's a big task. It's a big task we've got ahead of us. But there's been a lot of work already happening. So those are the priorities, really, is just getting the structures in place and then getting out the way so the members can do what they do, because they've got the expertise to do this. We just need to make sure the structures are there to support and not obstruct in the way that so many of us have experienced in political environments before.
Are those similar priorities to yourself, Candy?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the branches, so one of the best parts of this election has been meeting so many proto branches right across the Southwest and beyond. So really making sure that they have the resources they need to really thrive, because that is, where the power is happening. I think what people really want now is they want something different, and that has to be really supporting that on the ground organising. I think we have a huge, huge task to do, though, as well, in terms of how we grow and how we really get out there. My background is in community organising, and there are so many people that feel so let down, so lacking in representation. I hear all the time, I don't do politics. And, I think we have to really reach out and build power with those people that have felt that politics just long hasn't represented them. So that outward facing and really getting out there and growing is going to be crucial too.
Hi, Cassie. Hi, Candy. I've got a couple of questions as well, which the first one is obviously, for the public, I think, for the outside of the party, political culture has been, a question. How do you think this election, the establishment of a CEC, is going to now move the party on from, I think are like genuine and, like, in some cases legitimate ideological rifts between the two slates or the two factions, but also just from the way that people have spoken to each other and treated each other in public and in private?
Yes, so I think we do have a bit of a repair job to do. We saw some horrendous attacks on candidates of both slates, on some of the independents. We need to do better. We need to do better as a culture. I think it's a lot better than it appears behind the scenes. It's always the loudest, angriest voices that you see online and that you see in public. And democracy is messy. And I prefer our messy democracy to Starmer's, 3-line whip. Your job is removed, you're shoved on the back bench, you're cancelled the minute you disagree on something. I'd rather we be battling and scrappy than that. But it's our job now to set the tone of the culture. It's our job to demonstrate as a CEC that we can work together. And I think we're up to that task. Looking at the calibre of the people elected today, I think we can do that and we can turn the tide on that.
Oh, I think people feel pleased to hear that, like disagreement on the CEC, for example, won't be grounds for, ejection or anything like that in the way it is with Starmer. How about you, Candy? How are you feeling about the political culture, Candy?
Yes, I'm feeling how, I think I've always felt and approached this. And I think it's really, really important that we have a space where we can have open discussion, debate, and everyone can feel heard. But also, if we're going to do things differently, we can't have a culture where there are things like witch hunts or some of the behaviours that we've seen. As you mentioned, there's been some attacks on candidates, myself included, which have been really, really difficult to deal with. But I do see this as a chance for us to really move forward. And as I often think about, the far right aren't an abstract threat. for me. You know, I do a lot of work in racialized communities where people are being attacked, you know, by the day. We've seen this over the last week, and we have to really be facing the real opponents that are out there that are really rising in the hostility and the hatred that we are seeing in society. We've got so much to be focused on that we really need to be, you know, getting out there and, you know, spending a little bit less time kind of navel gazing perhaps of the CEC and much more time prioritising the kind of, you know, transformative politics that this society is crying out for.
Obviously, lots of people had, you know, concerns or worries about a shared leadership model. I wasn't one of them, but some, you know, many people did, or collective leadership model rather. But, you know, when I was looking at sort of the elections in sort of finer detail today, you know, if I look at those areas where, you know, one person has been elected from the many and one has been elected from the grassroots left, you know, there's not often a huge amount of difference in the number of votes picked up each time. And I was wondering whether you thought that, you know, at the meta level of the party, when you've got two big figures who are, you know, sort of working around a kind of ideological difference, when you actually have a collective leadership model and you're voting people from a region, they may often have much more in common with each other, given that, you know, there's the same kind of issues that impact the areas in which they're operating. So do you think that the collective leadership model may actually, you know, smooth waters that might have been rougher under I know it was never on the cards, a dual leadership model or a single leadership model, under a party where the membership actually seems to want quite a lot of different things? Okay, and Candy, we will start with you this time.
In terms of, you know, how collective leadership, I absolutely think that there is a role for us to play in kind of smoothing some of the path ahead. Absolutely. And I think that while there are some distinctions, you know, we strongly believe that branches really have to be at the heart of this, and they have to have the data and the resources that they need as soon as possible to really get off the ground. There are so many things that we are united on, you know, Palestine, anti-imperialism being absolutely at the heart of it, you know, anti-racism and the fight against that we are seeing, you know, not just on our streets, but, you know, it's turning up institutionally as it always has been. I think that what is going to be really important here is that we unite around something that is truly distinctive in our political programme. You know, it's really important that we're not just tweaking away at a capitalist system and just lowering and nipping and tucking things here. Like, we have to have that fundamental transformation and really putting the control of the economy in workers' hands. So I think us really uniting in our fight around that, and we are, you know, the party out there that is going to do that and is not afraid to talk about ending capitalism. So, you know, where we can unite around truly socialist policies, I think is going to be really important for the party, and getting people doing and building things with us. You know, we've had a lot of time spent where we've been talking and getting things up and running. I think the best way as an organizer is to get people doing and building together. So yeah, the sooner we can do that, the better.
Cassie, how about you?
I do think the model works. It's untested territory in some ways to have a party of our size be run by a collective leadership. I think the two people from each region is interesting. We've already had a bit of a back and forth text with my fellow Southeast person, who was someone endorsed by the grassroots slates, which was Naomi, today. And, you know, we're going to catch up over the weekend to think about how we can work together. So I think that does move forward. And one of the things I'm really excited about is, you know, Jeremy is very keen to replicate the model from Islington around community assemblies, that branches are totally and completely rooted in their communities. So we're addressing and reacting to the very real needs on the ground. And that's where, you know, radicalism is real, isn't it? Because there are moments when the wave is there behind you because everybody's united on an issue. You know, there was a moment we missed earlier in the year where everybody's water bills doubled, in the same week that there was major floods and leaks all over our region and up north, and breaches in canals. The whole country was united at that moment. If we'd had our act together and not been spatting, and we were spatting over something else that week, and just moved on water privatisation, we'd have won the argument in that week. And that's where we need to be better. We need to be ready. We need to be ready to go. We're going to have arguments. There's going to be bumps in the road, but they can't be played out on Twitter. They can't be dominating the news cycle. We have to do that, together, honestly, in good faith in the room. And I believe we can do that.
Thank you both very much. I'm going to pass you back to Helena.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm glad to see that there are green shoots for the future of the party. And I'm very happy to have. There's a lot of agreement, I thought, there, which was really nice to see.